Hey everybody, Greg Poole here at Junkie Media, bojunkie.com. It's time for another podcast. For those of you watching, you can already see the young man that is today's guest. For those of you that are listening to the audio only via one of the, I don't know, 110 different audio podcast available platforms out there, we appreciate you guys tuning in. As always, folks, we hope you guys had a good Christmas, had a good New Year. Obviously things are kind of ramping down for the hunting stuff pretty much, and target season is starting to be in full swing, especially the indoor side. So, with that being said, we've had this young man on the program before. Super good kid. He can shoot a little bit. And so generally speaking, we have been discussing for several years now how when this young gentleman was in diapers, we were talking about how great people were shooting. And now we've been talking about how the new level of shooting is ridiculous. And the thing that kind of dawned on me after the Rushmore Rumble was it's not necessarily that the shooting per se has gotten ridiculous. It's the shoot-offs have gotten ridiculous. It's not like we have, people coming into the Rushmore Rumble that shot 90 X's every day. There wasn't a, but the shoot off level, and that's something I want to talk with today's guest about, because really kind of what it starts to tell me is, yes, obviously the shooting level has gotten to it's incredible. But what these guys are doing in shoot offs, when everyone's supposed to be more nervous, is absolutely bonkers. So anyway, without any further ado, let's get the croc killer himself brought into here. It's Bodie Turner. What's going on, man?
Not much. Shooting bows.
Shooting
About it.
those
Shooting bows in school.
slam school. So absolutely.
Yep.
So let's talk about that first, of course. For those of you that don't know, Bodie is a senior in high school now. And there is something I want to talk about before we kind of get going. But how are things going with school? How much longer do you have in school, and what's your GPA?
I don't know what my GPA is, right? It was like 3.8 last year.
Oh,
Um, it's not terrible.
no, that's not terrible.
No.
All right.
Yeah. It's not bad. If we finish up in June, I think it is, mid-June, beginning of June,
Okay.
and then be shooting some more tournaments. Then August rolls around and tournament bows getting put up for a little bit, and a lot of hunting's gonna ensue after that.
Absolutely. So I will just there's something I want to talk about kind of before we get into what happened this last weekend. Congratulations, by the way. But
Like,
that is it safe to say 3.8 GPA is pretty good, by the way, but is it safe to say that you will not be attending college?
yeah, I don't really plan on that.
Okay. For obvious reasons, for those of you that are familiar with Bodie and his shooting resume to date, probably not going to need to. So I'm just asking that question. I don't know. Maybe, I didn't know. Maybe he's an animal lover and he wants to become a veterinarian and then
No.
yeah, he wants to be an archer and that's what he's going to do. So that part's totally cool. The other thing I want to talk about is kind of the topic of conversation that has surrounded you since, I don't know, when you won Vegas at 11 or however old you were, like 14 or 15. It was ridiculous.
Yeah.
But one of the things that I wanted to kind of talk about and bring up before we jump into this is you and your parents, obviously, um, Bodie's parents are basically shot IQ, Joel and Sarah over there, great people. Um, and so you guys have had a plan. And so one of the things I want to talk about very first is most people in this space are not in this space, industry, sport, whatever. They're just quite frankly not used to someone at your level that isn't completely covered up with sponsorships from head to toe from the minute they get up until they go to sleep. Historically, we have Jesse Broadwaters way back in the day when he had his brace face going, but he was fresh out of high school, went straight to pro, but social media wasn't really a thing back then. So, but with you, you started winning at such a young age that one, school took precedent, but number two, just talk a little bit about the strategy of, and it's not that you have no sponsors, but you've not signed on with the biggest of the big, and people see you show up and shoot one bow. Sometimes, 6 months later, you'll shoot another bow, and then you'll kind of move back and forth. So talk a little bit about the strategy, and it's really a business strategy as far as I'm concerned, of why you didn't want to jump into that, while you were still in school.
Yeah, I mean, above all else, especially at my age, when you're not really overly focused on contracts, I don't really think you should be at my age. I mean, if you can win, winning is by far the most important thing. That's where you're going to get the most money from. If you want to mainly just be in it for money, that's where you're going to get most of your money from. For me, it's nice because I do still have support from whatever company that I do shoot for, but they also know that I'm not signed with them, and I still am going to have the ability to shoot what I think I have the best chance of winning with. Because if I started and signed right off the bat with a company that I didn't really shoot the best with, then I can't win. And if I'm not winning, there's no point in somebody wanting to sign me later. So right now, because I'm gonna sign at some point.
Right.
I can't avoid that, and I don't want to at all.
Right.
But I want to be able to build up enough of a resume, which I feel that I am and have, to be able to want people or for people to want to sign me.
Right.
I mean, I've shot my Invictus for years, and I've loved those bows. I shot a PSC Super X last year, shot that really well for indoor stuff. And then everybody was doing really well with the Matthews, so I was able to get my hands on one of those. And I shot that pretty well last year. No really big complaints about that. And then the new Hoyt came out, and I've always been a Hoyt fan. I've shot one since my very first. I mean, I had a Hoyt Ignite. That was like my first kind of target bow, and then I got a Pro Comp FX, and I had two of those and competed with those for years.
Right.
And I've always been a big fan of the Hoyt platform, especially with the people that work there. I have good relationships with them, and I got my hands on one of those, and I've I've been liking the new Hoyt Concept X. I think it's a great bow. And I mean, I shot it well last weekend. There's still some stuff I'd like to tweak on it, but
We're going to
I
get to
mean,
that for
it's
sure.
yeah. And I mean, but so many people focus on contracts when, I mean, if you don't win, you're not going to get a contract in a couple years. Like if you win one tournament and then a bow company offers you a good contract and you jump in with that bow company, but you don't shoot it as well, you're not going to get a contract after that.
Well, especially
I mean,
not.
yeah. I mean, for me, I'm looking for the longevity in the sport. So I want to be able to build up my recognition first, and then I can focus on contracts after that. Because I mean, you can't win forever. You can't always be at the top of things. That's just a given.
Right.
You can't avoid that. You can't just win until you're dead. I mean,
Right. Yeah.
I mean, you can do okay here and there, but if you can build up a good enough reputation to where you don't even need to win anymore, it's just a matter of having your face on a brand. And
Value.
I want to be able to get to that point as well, to where I almost don't even have to win.
Right.
I mean, of course, it's good, it helps, but I can't win forever, and I know that.
Hmm.
So right now, I'm trying to squeeze in as many wins as I can for as long as I can. I'm going to keep that going for as long as I can, but I also want to be able to have value outside of just being able to win.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, and you're absolutely right. I mean, there is, it's just not realistic that you
Yeah,
are going to perform like you are right now for 30 more years.
yeah,
That's
exactly.
not. There's going to be another Bodie that comes along in another who knows when, but
Yeah,
and that's the cyclical nature of that. So when
I have one more thing on that I want to add real quick.
go ahead.
So like I've had people ask me on contract and stuff like, hey, I think I can get a lot better contract from these people than I can this company. I'm like, well, if you win three more tournaments with that one, is that 10 grand really going to matter that you got guaranteed if you can't win later with the bow? I mean, if you can win another 50 grand with one bow, but you can get another 10 grand on a contract with another company. I mean, I'd rather have the 50 grand of winnings because
Right.
one, that adds to my value, but it also adds to my checkbook in the end of it. I mean,
Absolutely.
makes
And
it nice.
yeah, and let's be honest, contracts don't go on resumes.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, that's just the real of it. And look, folks, we're having this conversation, and just I'm just gonna say this right out front. The level that we're talking about is Bodie's level of contracts. It was never my level. Bodie's level of contracts that we're discussing was never Greg Poole as a shooter's level. So don't try to think, but this discussion is going to be based around the Bodie Turner level of contracts, not the Greg Poole level when he was shooting good, not most all of us. So don't, when Bodie says something, Bodie's talking about himself. And so just keep that in mind. I know a lot of people, like what you just said, it's, yeah, if I can win two or three more tournaments, 10 grand on a contract is meaningless. And
Yep,
so
exactly.
let me ask you this. I've heard it forever. I heard it with Jesse Broadwater. I heard it with Dave Cousins. I've heard it with everybody. And I don't expect you to go into super deep detail, but I'm going to ask you this question. What are your thoughts when you hear somebody say Bodie Turner, or insert legendary super good archer's name here, could shoot just as good with any bow?
Well, I mean, I would say that I've shot them all, and there's definitely some that I wouldn't even consider shooting.
For those of you not watching this, he got a huge grin on his face and started thinking about what he was going to say. And I
Yeah.
said forever, bullshit, bullshit. No, no, great archers cannot just pick up any bow and shoot at the same level.
Yeah.
Bodie Turner could pick up any bow and beat me. That's fair. That's fair. Bodie Turner's not going to pick up just any bow and go do what he did against Mathias Fullerton.
Yeah, for sure.
That's and I hate to be the bearer of bad news, folks. And this is just as honest as I can be. Bodie doesn't give a shit about beating me because he knows he's gonna. I mean, let's be honest. I mean, I'll still talk trash. Don't get it twisted, son. But
Yeah.
I'm not your competition. And so when you hear people say that, how do you process that in your head? In the midst of a conversation like that, when someone says, "Well, Bodie, you could pick up any bow and do just as good." How do you
I mean,
process?
I would say that I have picked up every bow, like pretty much every one that I can think of. Might not be the newest model, but at least one of the recent models.
Mhm.
I think I've tried most companies, and I mean, I can think of one that I got and put about 15 hours through it, and I never touch it again.
Right.
I mean, I didn't. It didn't agree with me. I didn't like it. Um, there's certain aspects of some bows that I like, and there's certain aspects of another bow I might like. I mean, when somebody like all people ask me if I could build the perfect bow, what would it be? I don't really know because you can do so many different things with so many different bows.
Right.
I mean, like I shot the title and I love certain aspects of the title and I love certain aspects of the Concept X and I like certain aspects of the Super X. Like all of those bows have things that I like of them. And I mean, there's so much technology out there that you can make any bow feel like another bow almost.
Right.
Maybe not in the same draw cycle, but when it's at full draw, I can make it feel almost exactly the same as another bow.
Right.
And I mean, I think that there's a lot of people focus almost too much on themselves and not enough on their equipment. There's a lot of people that, I mean, I'll pick up their bow and shoot it not much better than they do. And at that point, I mean, I've seen people that I think are good shots and then they just set up a bow and then they shoot and they're like, it shoots okay. I'm going to keep working on myself. I'm like, okay, but like you can shoot a hell of a lot better than you are now.
Right.
but you don't work on your equipment the same you work on yourself. I mean,
Right.
for me, I'm a little bit different case. Um, I've I do work on myself some, but I I don't want to have to work on myself. I want the bow needs to work no matter what I do.
Right. Within
If
reason.
I do something, yeah, of course, I do something perfect I mean, if I shoot a pretty good shot, I expect it to be inside out or really close to it.
Right.
I mean, I can't expect a shot that breaks in the eight to shoot an inside out X,
Right.
but I also expect a shot that breaks in the middle to hit in the middle. And I mean, that's one thing that kind of gets to me after a while is when you see so many people that are good shooters and then they just never, I mean, they do little stuff here and there, but they need to just like fully restart on their system. That
Right.
they just keep working on themselves and I just need to shoot more. I'm like, you're shooting like 300 arrows a day. You don't need to shoot more.
Right.
You just need to keep working on your equipment. And I mean, sometimes it's a bow thing. Sometimes maybe that bow won't work for you. But there's a lot of people that are held back by themselves, but there's also a lot of people that are held back by their equipment, I feel.
Right. You're not wrong. I mean, I always said for years, and I get tired of using myself as an example, but even when I was shooting the best I could, nobody had a better tuned bow than me. There
Yeah.
was people who were better shots than me, and that was between the years. And so, where do you think that crossover point is? Is it obviously it's individual for everybody, but at what point do you look at an archer and let's be honest, Bodie, you don't count. You're too good. Just to be
Yeah.
honest. But at what point do you think you look at an archer and go, he is shooting as good as he is capable, no matter what rig he has, or um, this guy could pick up a lot of points by doing this to his equipment?
hmm I mean, it can be tough to tell. I mean, there's some people that they aren't really going to get better than they are. I mean, for personally, this might sound cliche because my dad who he is, but
Right.
I mean, I think shot control can be a big part of it.
Sure.
Um, there's some people that can punch well, but not many people can at all. I mean, you go down a line of pros and everybody's tried it. I
You're not
mean, I
wrong.
wouldn't say I have because I'm pretty happy with how I do. But I mean, you walk down a line of pros, they're all like, "Yeah, I tried it one time in the basement. It don't work for me."
Right.
And then you'll see somebody that just hammering a trigger out there. I'm like, no, I don't think that they quite punch like that.
Right. Right.
I
Well,
mean,
I mean that look at Kyle. Kyle's a
yeah,
command shooter and he does real well.
yeah, for sure.
But
Kyle, Jimmy, and
yep.
I mean, those guys do really, really well. I personally wouldn't change how they shoot because that's what works for them.
Right.
They've shot the other way. They can probably be fairly competitive shooting a controlled shot, but they have found that they can be more competitive by shooting their command style.
Right.
And both ways, I think, definitely have their flaws and their ways of breaking down. I personally think that a controlled shot can be stronger once that has been perfected. I think that that can be a stronger process.
Right.
Um, but I mean, it's for when I'm just looking at somebody and seeing how they're shooting. I mean, I'll look at their equipment, I'll see how the arrows are flying, how they have it set up, how their bars are. But I mean, a lot of I can look at the person, not necessarily their equipment, and just see how they're shooting. Because I mean,
Right.
some people shoot certain bows that I've tried. They shoot them really, really well. They shoot them a lot better than I did.
Right.
And so it's tough to look at somebody's equipment and be like, oh, that sucks. I mean, the best holding bow that I ever felt was, besides maybe one or two setups that I've built, is I was trying a guy's bow and it just didn't move. And I shot it phenomenal. I
Right.
could have dumped a 29 or a 30X with that bow right off the bat. But I mean, he was shooting in like the 280s with it. I mean, but
Oh,
he was shooting a good shot, and I mean, everything's so different to every person. I mean, I've seen some wild setups. They're like, there's no way that guy can hit anything, and then he steps up and just pounds with you. Like, oh, well, I mean, I guess it works for him.
right,
And I'll try it. I'm like, I can't hit anything with this.
right.
I
Oh,
mean,
100%.
so much is just completely personal preference in archery
Right,
that people ask one person that shoots good and they're like, oh, it doesn't work for me. I'm like, yeah, it doesn't work for everybody.
right,
I mean, I personally don't love to run a very heavy bow. I've found on some setups that it just doesn't shoot well if you don't, which kind of sucks. That's something I definitely think about when I'm trying a bow is if it does shoot well light. I don't
right,
want to run a bunch of weight. I can have the ability to. There's certain times where I will want more, but I also want to be able to shoot a light bow if I want to.
right.
That's one thing. I mean, that's the first thing I tested on the concept is can I run it lighter, just like I could my Invictus. I mean, I've shot 1 ounce and 1 ounce on my Invicta and shot a 30x with it, and I've shot 20 ounces and 15 ounces and shot a 30x with it.
Right,
I mean, it's nice when I can fully customize the bow to what I want, not
right.
necessarily what it needs, but what I want out of it.
That's a good
It
point.
sucks when I have to run a bunch of weight on a bow to get it to shoot. It drives me nuts.
It's a good point. That's
Yeah,
a
I mean,
it's a very good point.
it's like on my Super X, I needed a little bit more weight on it. I didn't need a crazy amount, um, but I definitely needed a little bit more on to get to shoot. My concept, it needs a little bit more than I have ran in the past, but not a crazy amount. In the
Right,
year that I won Vegas, I had 4 ounces on my front bar and
right.
13 ounces on my back bar. And I mean, I shot a 660 and got third in Lancaster and then won Vegas that year. I mean, I would call it a pretty decent year for me.
That's yeah. That was
Um,
you were what, 15?
Started at 14 and then finished Vegas at 15. Yeah.
Exactly. So let me ask you this, and this has to do with the shot IQ and the process of all that. And it certainly helped a lot of people. So for you being, I mean, let's just, you are the manifestation of that program.
Yeah.
How much are you at your level still continuing to focus on that, develop that? And, obviously it's incorporated into your shot process at the foundation. That goes without saying. But how much are you at this stage having to actually refresh on some of that methodology and keep that you know developing in your head?
Yeah. So I'm to the point to where I use it when I need it.
Oh,
It's not something that I just need 24. I don't need to talk myself through every single step when I'm sitting in my garage shooting or mid qualification round.
right,
If I have a shot going start, I can start to recognize that it's going long. I will jump into a mantra. It's just a thing that just I can switch into.
right,
And it's more of something at this point to where I use it when I need it, but I have the ability to be able to use it whenever I do need it. It's
right,
not something where I'm like, oh, can I still do it? Like, I know exactly what I'm going to say, when I'm going to say it. I know exactly how to use it.
right.
I mean, but I've been doing this for 10 years, only
Forever, bro.
17, but I've still been doing it for 10 years.
Right,
Um, so I mean, I don't want people to take that the wrong way to like once you do it a couple times or do it for a year, like I haven't punched a trigger in a year, I don't need to do it anymore. No, it's not like that.
right,
I'm to the point to where it's perfected. I cannot have a stronger mental process than I do right now. I can get into my head, but I can also get into my head in the correct ways.
right.
When I get into my own head, I can jump right back out of it.
Gotcha.
When the wrong thought goes into my head, so I don't want to miss this X. If I keep that in my head, I'm going to miss that X. I cannot I cannot count how many 30 X's I've missed in practice because I'm like, man, I don't really want to miss this last one. Or miss one on the last end. That would be stupid. I'm gonna miss one on that last end unless I get into my head, break myself out of it, and put the correct thoughts back into my head of what I need.
Right. So when you're, I mean, and obviously you've already done it, so it's not like, it's going to be new to you, but everybody grew up taking the last shot on the basketball court for the win. When you're by yourself,
Yeah.
there's nobody else there. You're like, for the win. Oh,
Yep.
or if you're in the range and you're like last arrow on the line for Vegas, X to win. Do you do you ever, I mean, recently, of course, maybe when you were 10 or 11, you were like, oh, I'm the world champion when you're by yourself or whatever. But at this stage
Yeah.
of your career, do thoughts like that go through your head just for fun when you're practicing? Or since you've already won all that stuff, are you just like, yeah, I've already done that?
I mean, I don't really do it in practice, but I mean when I'm shooting, I mean when me and Matthias have gone 23 ends and I'm tired, I mean at that point it's just you're just shooting.
Right.
I mean, of course you don't want to miss, but I also don't want to miss when I'm on practice end.
Right.
I mean, it doesn't really matter.
Yeah. Like, I mean,
Um,
yeah, I mean, like, look, I doubt Michael Jordan, when he truly became Michael Jordan, was shucking and jiving at the free throw line, shooting shots, going, "This is for the title." It's like, bro, I
yeah,
already five of those. I'm just making another shot I know I might need in my repertoire. And
yeah,
so that's the mentality that you're talking about, is
hmm
you have honed your mental game to the point where now it's just part of your tool bag. So
yeah, for sure.
that's wild. So all right, so let's jump into this Rushmore Rumble thing. Number one, you didn't necessarily come into the Rushmore Rumble um, on level 10 of your confidence and all of your stuff.
No,
You so we were texting and you were like, it's not totally right. And so you started making some stabilization changes. Um, and so kind of talk a little bit to everybody about what we were texting about, on practice day and then on qualifications and then the changes you made and then the changes you unmade.
yeah. So, I mean, I'm always changing stuff at home, and I'd kind of found a system that I'd liked. I'd been shooting a fair bit, not a ton. Um, Definitely still trying all kinds of setups and seeing what I like and what I think's best. So when I got there and was practicing, I felt my bow just felt really, really heavy. I kept just having dips. And for me, I don't mind a I don't mind a float at all, but I don't like a consistent dip. That drives me nuts, which is why I don't like to run a bunch of weight on my bow. I
Right.
don't want my movement to just be down. That drives me insane. It's just something I don't like to see.
Huh,
Because
right.
I mean, if it's just a constant thing, I can only break so many, not in the dip.
True.
But personally for me, I feel that when I'm just moving, like I don't really know what my pattern is, but when I'm just moving around in the 10 or just on the edge of the 10, I'm pretty confident that if I break that shot, it's going to hit in the middle.
Right.
So I really didn't like the dip that I was seeing. So I took some weight off and got it to go well, and then I shot really well in practice at the end of the day, and I was like, okay, cool, right? Like I shot like 25 clean ends on a really clean target. I was like, okay, that works for me.
Right.
I'll take that. And then the next day, I was shooting, and the the movement was too fast for me.
Yep.
Where I mean, I would say I almost can time my squeeze. Um, when I'm just when my pin's just moving, it doesn't move very fast.
Right.
So, I mean, if I see it starting to go to the right, I'll stop my squeeze for just a split second, and then when I see it moving back towards the middle, then I'll start it again.
Right.
When I'm super nervous and just shaking, I just squeeze through it the whole time because I can't time a movement that's moving faster than my eye can pick it up.
Right. Right.
So, just for my when I was shooting fairly calm, my movement, my pin speed was too fast to be able to do what I was trying to do.
Right.
And so that night ended up with, because I went down to 14 and 6, 14 in the rear, 6 in the front. And then I went to 12 and 16, which I've ran. The heaviest I've ran on my concept. Heaviest I've ran well is 20 and 14.
Okay.
And when I shoot it, I can get used to it. I just don't like to, I move stuff too much to take time to try and get used to a weight system because I'm going to end up changing it anyways.
Okay.
So I went to 16 and 12, and that was shooting pretty well for me. I at least got a pin speed back down to where I was more comfortable with it, that I could shoot it well. And then I shot my first practice end for the second day and didn't like it at all. It was too heavy.
Right.
So I just took a 4 ounce plate off the second practice end and like that should still hit the middle. And I got another thing on knowing your equipment. You need to know that if you take weight off on some bows, I can take all the weight off and it hits the same spot. Another bow, I can take an ounce off and it changed the impact an inch and a half,
Right.
like 40 yards. Like that's another thing I knew on that concept. I didn't really have that problem to where if I take weight off, it hasn't really mattered that much, enough for me to care. So I took a 4 ounce plate off and went back to 16 and 8, 16 in the back, 8 in the front, which is what I had started at. And that, I mean, I'd been shooting that bow for months, and that was the system that I found.
Right.
And just, I wasn't comfortable with it that first day. It was too heavy.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I was able to shoot a 30X that second day. Once I went back to that 16 and 8, it was comfortable. It was aiming good enough for me to where I was comfortable with it. And I liked the movement speed of it to where I was able to perform well with it.
Right. Right. So I don't mean to put you on blast here, but I'm going to put you on blast here. What stabilizer bars were you running there?
I was running the Excels,
Which ones?
the 550s. I
And
like those ones.
what about the other ones that you said you like even better?
The 500s.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oh yeah. I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah.
I have some of them. I just gotta find the ones that I want to run. They're somewhere. I think they're buried in my Forerunner.
You can't find them.
I haven't looked for them yet, if we're being perfectly honest.
Right. But they're not anywhere readily accessible for you, are they?
I mean, if I dig for a minute or two, it'll probably be pretty readily accessible. But I haven't done that yet.
Oh, oh my God. That is epic. All right. So, so you come in to the shoot off and,
Yeah.
obviously, it's another shoot off. It's something that you have obviously become super accustomed to. So let's just kind of fast forward until it gets down to you and Mathias. Now, at your level, there's really not, I don't think intimidation's a factor. I don't think any of that is a factor, but
It
strategy
can
can
be.
be, huh?
Yeah. I think it can be.
Well, for you on some other people probably, but
Yeah.
yeah. And so, yes, totally understand. But let me ask you this. Mathias won Vegas and had one of well, easily the most epic Vegas shoot off we've ever seen.
Hmm.
So when it got down to you and Mathias and you guys started to bang them out, did it, and I don't want to say anything detrimental to anyone else, but if it wasn't Mathias, if it was some other person that wasn't a usual suspect for this, maybe Bodie would have had some thoughts in his mind about, how long this is going to take. But when it got down to you and Mathias, did it cross your mind at all that, yeah, I saw what this kid did in Vegas last year, so he could literally stand here and shoot X's with me for a long time. Did that cross your mind at all?
I told him we're going to 30 ends. After that, we can both miss one. But yeah.
You did?
I, yeah. I kept making jokes like, we're going to 30. I
That's
mean,
hilarious.
I'm like, we're here. We might as well make it cool. Might as well double it.
That's
Uh,
hilarious.
like for me personally in shoot offs, once I get to a certain point, I feel I shouldn't miss. I can't say that with confidence because I'm gonna miss at some point. I'm not a robot as much as I try to be.
Right.
And so, I mean, for me, the first 3 to 4 ends are rough, but after I get comfortable and after, yeah, I mean, after I get comfortable, I just kind of just keep running with it. And after those first like 10 ends, I mean, the best that I've ever aimed at some of these indoor shoots is in a shoot off. Once I shoot a certain amount of ends, I'm just shooting again at that point. Of course, I have a higher determination level because I don't want to miss because it actually does matter.
Right.
But I have a determined, at that point, I have a really high determination level with very little nerves
Gotcha.
to where I can really just hone in to shooting and I can aim well and I can execute really well. And at that point, I feel like I get really dangerous in shoot offs after the first couple to where I am able to get comfortable.
And so what is it, those first three, four ends you think that gets you a little amped up? Just the excitement of being there, the excitement of, you know, I mean, let's be honest, if we were to do the math and we were to discount the Rushmore Rumble in Vegas shoot offs don't generally go that long. So
No, not at all.
is it so I mean, is that part of it where you're like, man, come out here and shoot 12 X's in a row, four ends, and
Yeah.
stand a pretty good chance of winning? Because historically that's kind of been the deal. Is that part of it, or is it just the overall experience?
Pretty much just the overall experience. I personally don't want to get out early. I mean,
Right.
like a lot of the time for me, there's going to be certain people that I want to get past. And once I've kind of established myself at a level in a shoot off to where a lot of the main crowd has dropped out, because I mean, we can be honest, a lot of people are going to drop out, and there's those first 4 ends is where your main crowd's going to drop out. You
Right.
probably lose half at least of the people in those first 4 ends.
Right.
After that, you've kind of established yourself as almost the hierarchy of that shoot off.
Right. Well, it's true.
Where,
It's true.
yeah, I almost just want to be able to make it to that point. And once I make it to that point, I can be happy with where I am.
That is
Um,
that is so incredibly insightful. Like,
yeah,
I've had a lot of conversations with a lot of people for way too many years about shoot offs, and it's always been just make it to the shoot off, just make it to the shoot off. But I've never really heard someone at your level explain it that way. But as you're explaining it, I'm listening and I'm like, holy shit, he's 100% right. Because
yeah,
now I'm literally remembering in my head so many shoot offs, not that I was in them, but remembering so many shoot offs where it's like you have this, a couple people drop off and then you go to X's and then a bunch of people drop off and then you get down to the last 3 to 5 and you're like, well, these are the guys.
yeah,
You're totally right. And it's
yeah. I
not,
mean, like
yeah,
if I get out in like the second end of Vegas, I'm gonna be really mad.
right,
I'm gonna be really mad.
right,
But if I get out in the seventh or eighth end, I'm like, I shot well this weekend. I made it to where some shoot offs would have ended, but if I get out in those first end or two, you're not going to see me walking off happy.
right. No,
I
dude,
mean,
that's
you're not going to see me walking off pleased if I get out.
right,
Of
right,
course, I'm there. I'm there to win, but I can't complain if I make it most of the way through a shoot off.
right. No, that's what I'm saying is like,
Yeah.
that is such an insightful observation on your part to where you are literally taking a shoot off and you're making it almost an achievement within the shoot off.
Yeah.
Because, like you said, once you get down to the last 3 to 5 people, that's the other level. So that's an absolutely fantastic observation. So nice job on that. And so you mentioned earlier you were talking about people shooting 200 to 300 arrows a day. And obviously we're going to come back to the shoot off, but how many arrows were you practicing a day coming into the Rushmore Rumble? Well, that's
Like
not,
when I shot,
yeah,
when I
right.
shot,
Right.
I mean, like I shoot a lot. I can't say I don't, but I can definitely say that there's people that shoot a lot more than I do.
Okay. So that question is to ask this. Um, you shoot however many you shoot to warm up that day. You shoot your 30x Vegas round that day. I don't know how much you got to warm up for the shoot off. And then you come into the shoot off that literally lasts another 69 arrows on top of that.
3 arrows for practice.
Oh, okay. So you were monitoring your shot count. And so the question is,
Yeah.
right? And so that's my question is, and we're going to get into the, obviously you said you were joking and Mathias is such a great kid. Um, but talk about the physical stress and the physical, yeah, I don't know if it's necessarily fatigue, but it certainly can be in that situation because you and I both know that even though you might not be truly physically fatigued, mental fatigue can also affect your physical fatigue. And so,
Yeah.
you know, talk through that part of it. Like, I didn't see you necessarily, trying to stretch and trying to, keep, like you weren't exhibiting any symptoms of physical fatigue, but bro, that's a lot of extra arrows.
Yeah. I mean, I wasn't, I wouldn't say in that shoot off I was mentally or physically fatigued at all. I
Okay.
mean, personally, I I didn't really struggle. I felt I could have went another 10, 15 ends.
Of
The
course.
only way I would have missed is if I would have felt like I was doing something stupid. I mean, every one of us up there, in my opinion, should have the ability to shoot that many arrows without. I mean, I might shoot a couple hundred arrows in a day. I might shoot for like 5 hours straight,
Right.
or I might not shoot that day. I mean, for my practice schedule completely matters off of if I have a setup that I am fully confident in. If I'm fully confident in the setup, I don't need to. I all I need to do is shoot to make sure I'm keeping up. Um, I know that if I don't shoot, my scores will go down. I mean that's just a given. I've it's kind of weird. I mean, I can break great shots all day and not really feel like, or I might not put out a great score in practice if I don't shoot for like a week,
Right.
which is rare. That's during hunting season. But if I shoot for 3, 4 days consistently, I'm right back to where I was. And like I'll track scores sometimes doing that, and I'll notice that okay, I shot like a 26, or typically shoot a 600 round.
Mhm.
So I might shoot like a 56x, so two 28x games.
Right.
And the next day I'll shoot. Like I had one time where I didn't shoot for like a week. I was busy doing something, and then I came back and shot 56x. Next day I shot 57x. Next day shot 58x, and then I was shooting consistent 58 to 60x's throughout the rest of the time. But it took me those couple days to kind of get back
Mhm.
to where I wanted to be. I mean, it's just like in practice. I'll show up to a tournament sometimes and I'll just suck. I mean, we've talked about that for on the podcast, and I just can't hit anything. And then that little bit of something shows up, and I can shoot again. I don't really know what it is,
Yeah. Well,
but it's definitely something.
your definition of not hitting anything is not everybody else's definition of not hitting anything. So
Yeah,
let's
but
let's
to
get
my
that straight.
standards, I mean, I hold myself to extremely high standards.
Exactly.
If I miss more than 1x, I'm not going to be very happy.
Exactly. Exactly.
But yeah,
So I mean, and that's, and it's not so much just the arrow count. Like, I don't know if you've watched that video. Of course, you were there in real time to see it, but your shit was tight.
yeah,
Like, you were you were straight railing. Like, and the longer it went, it seemed like the tighter your targets got.
I
I
just kept getting the longer it went, the better I aimed. It just it got easier. I mean, for me, that maybe that's a thing of having a light bow. where I don't really get fatigued.
Right.
I mean, when I shoot fast. I mean, I'll shoot a 600 round in like 45 minutes tops.
Right.
I might just sit there and shoot and come back and shoot.
Well, and you're
I'm
17.
yeah, well, that also helps. But like another huge part of it is when you're in a shoot off, you have adrenaline.
Oh, for
You're
sure.
gonna have adrenaline. So like that's one thing that I've realized and I forgot it because it's been a little bit. But when I show up to a shoot off, when I show up to a shoot, my bow feels heavy, but it didn't before. Honestly, I need to just leave it, which I followed through on that because when I'm shooting, I'm gonna get that little bit of adrenaline, no matter how confident I am in it.
Right.
There's gonna be adrenaline, and when I have that adrenaline, that bow isn't gonna feel heavy unless it's stupidly weighted.
Right.
And I don't weight bows to the high heavens.
Right.
I mean, a heavy bow to me is not a heavy bow to most people.
I'm an 8.3 pound bow guy. My bow,
Yeah,
8.3 pounds, and it's not a strength issue, I promise. But
yeah,
let me ask this. Um, I have seen in throughout my career that if I eat certain things the night before, it does not go well for me the next day. It's
yeah.
not it's not an allergy. It's just something. And so, how much do you? I mean, of course, at 17, you could probably smash McDonald's and be fine. But do you? Yeah, right. So he's shaking his head no for those of you listening. So, how much do you focus on food either leading up or the day before you shoot?
Well, honestly, I aim the best and feel the best when I don't eat at all. I'll try and when I am at shoots, I try and eat a little bit higher in protein. You're not gonna see me just crushing a salad ever. Um, like I'll get a steak and something like that or a burger. But most like for me, the best day that I held was the last day at the Rushmore Rumble, and I didn't eat that day until like 2 hours after I finished shooting. That's for me personally. I've because I've always dealt with nausea stuff at tournaments.
Oh, that's right.
Um,
That's right. I forgot.
so I don't really mind throwing up when I don't throw anything up. I'll sit there and dry heave all day. I don't really care about that. But um, I mean that's a huge part of me not eating, and I've always done that at any kind of tournament.
Is that still happening?
Um, last day, yeah, I threw up that morning, or I dry heaved that morning because I hadn't eaten anything.
Okay.
Um, and I mean, I've just always ran with that, and I've noticed that a lot of time when I don't eat before, I mean, I don't feel weak. That little bit of adrenaline picks up anything that I needed it to.
Right.
Um, I mean, I've never starved at all. I wouldn't say that. I mean, I'll always, well, typically, I can't say always because there's been a lot of times where I haven't eaten for like days. But um, I mean, that last day I held the best and felt the best. And that was the day that I didn't eat until after.
Yeah, that wouldn't work for me, bro. That wouldn't work for me.
No.
I would be hangry. My eyes wouldn't work. I would want to chew the cams off my. Yeah, that would not work for me good at all. But I mean,
Yeah.
obviously it works
I
for
mean,
you.
again, it's just that personal preference thing to where that's something that I've honestly just kind of built myself around. Just I've built myself and my setups and just my mental process. I'm used to not eating during that. I mean, like no, I always try and eat something afterwards. I might have a little like pepperoni stick, like 100, 200 calories with some protein during when I'm shooting.
Okay.
But I mean, that'll be all. I mean, I definitely always try and stay a little bit hydrated. I always definitely drink water. I'm always drinking water. People, if you see me, I have a water, or my mom's following me around with a water.
Right.
Um,
I saw her come down and sit behind you during the rumble.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I don't. I've just always built myself to where I don't necessarily feel like I need to eat during tournaments. I mean, I shot Gator Cup a couple years ago. I didn't eat for like 3 days. I felt strong the whole time shooting that.
Damn. Oh, well, I was just going to ask, does that also apply at like Reading, and does that apply at outdoor nationals and stuff as well?
Outdoor tournaments, I don't really get nerves that much at outdoor tournaments. I have at times, but it's never very serious.
Oh, okay.
Um, yeah, I mean, it definitely can in the mornings. Like I think I dry heaved like every day at Reading before. I would get up like 30 minutes before. I'd take a shower and then get all that out of my system. Then I'll feel better.
Hey,
Um, I hate being nauseous during stuff,
you
and
think?
I've been around it so much to where I don't really mind it anymore. I'll just kind of dry heave or throw up to just kind of get it done with because then
Right.
I'll know I'll feel better for like an hour.
Freaking
Um,
Jamie Foxx on any given Sunday over here throwing up on the huddle. But hey, if it works, man. That's
yeah, I mean, I would much rather not, but I mean that's another thing to where I don't want to be worrying about feeling sick on the line.
oh, absolutely. No, no question.
Like,
And it's obviously
yeah,
working.
yeah.
So, so let me ask this, and then I want to kind of get into some because I'm sure there's probably thousands of people that are like, talk about his god dang equipment, and we're gonna. Um,
Yeah.
but so here is a kind of a loaded question. It's not loaded question. It don't matter. Now that you see what you're doing, what Matthias is doing, what Stefan and Jimmy, and I mean, the bar has definitely been raised. What are your thoughts on changing the game to make it harder?
I mean, for me, I don't really care. I mean, kind of got annoying going 23 ends. Of course, that's going to be annoying.
Right?
I felt more bad for people watching because I'm like, I'm bored. You guys are definitely bored because you're not even shooting.
I have a follow up question, and that was part of it, but continue.
Um, I don't personally think that there's a good way to fix it. I mean, I've heard about people like after a certain amount of ends going to inside out X's or once it's to two people going to inside out X's. I'm like, I mean, I get it, sure, but I don't think that's a good way to do it. And inside out X is too precise.
Well, I mean,
Maybe,
you better roll out some brand new Reinhardt brick wall targets for that
yeah,
because
exactly.
those,
Yeah,
I mean, look, folks, I'm going to say this. You have to understand the NFAA has hundreds of those bales. They couldn't afford to have all Reinhardt brick walls. So this is not a diss on the Vegas NFAA white targets in any kind of way. It's not a diss on them.
they're good bales,
Yeah,
but
but shooting
your arrow ain't gonna go in straight.
they kick a little bit,
A
and so
lot. I the worst kicking tournament I've ever been to was the last Rushmore Rumble. I took a picture of Louis Holmes' arrow. That sucker was in the bottom target and dang near touching the top of the paper. When you're looking at it from behind, it was way up there. I
right,
mean, you can't count inside out X's like that. I mean,
right,
and especially with the judging, I still think that there needs to be a better way of judging. I don't know how you would fix it. I mean, I think back to me and Jimmy's shoot off last year. Like we walked up and shook hands. We're like, I got him. He missed one. We both looked at it. Of course, I'm not gonna say anything, but I
right,
was like about to pull my arrows. And we walked up, we both agreed, we shook hands. They said 30, we looked at each other, and I was like, if I lose now, I'm gonna throw a huge complaint in because we shook hands.
right,
Like we walked up, shook hands. It was a good shoot, good shooting. You shot well, and then we're going back to shoot another end.
right. Oh,
Like,
yeah.
I mean, I've shot. I mean, it's just it's so, especially inside ad X's. It's so touchy to where there's no way that you could do it.
Well, I mean, you could, but luck would come into play at some point. And
I
so,
wouldn't be shooting 27s, I guarantee you that much.
right? Exactly. So I mean, this is kind of my thing on that. And it's been this, I've had this same opinion forever. Using Vegas as an example. Who calls your first arrow for score?
What do you mean?
You on your target.
Oh yeah,
Who calls your first arrow for score? Whoever's
me.
calling arrows on the bail.
Yeah,
Who calls your 90th? Whoever's calling.
whoever's on the bail,
Yeah. Who calls your 91st? A
the
judge.
judge.
Why? Why not let the shooters continue to call until they need help?
Yeah, I mean, I I can agree with that. I mean, like
Because we,
I had one at the 10K a day last year at Vegas. Yeah, at Vegas.
right?
And I walked up, I piped one. I'm like, hell yeah, I finally got one. I finally made it past the first round. And I always shoot next, but I've never shot an inside out X after that. And I shot 23s and I had them built and I had them shooting really good. And I was getting people fist bumps. I'm like, look at that. Just before I say anything, I had like 5 people call it in. Walked up, the judge didn't even lean down to look at it and tore my target down. I was like, come on. I had
Yeah.
5 people call it in, and then some random guy walks up and tears my target down.
Right. That's what I'm saying. Like archers call their arrows from 1 to 90. And if they need help or they disagree, they call a judge. Perfect.
Yeah.
Why not do the same in shoot offs?
Yeah. I mean,
That's been my position for years. So in regard to the and I was actually messaging with Mathias about this the other day. And you just said how boring the shoot off was because you were shooting and you were bored. You can only imagine how the people watching felt.
yeah.
And yes, folks, you could hear a mouse fart in that room. There was literally no sound, no applause, nobody talking to you guys between ends. And it's my opinion, this is what I told Mathias. Number one, what you guys were arrow for arrow, should be having someone down there doing the whole FIDA deal. When Mathias shoots 10, and everybody can yell and clap for a quick second. And then when you beep, 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 everybody gets quiet. You pull
Yeah.
shoot 10. And the reason for that is when Mathias shoots, looks good. When Bodie shoots, looks good. I'm talking about the sound of the paper.
Yeah.
But if you have an announcer on the audio calling it out and people allowed to react for a quick second, it gives you an extra adrenaline bump, creates potentially extra nerves, extra pressure. And I know everyone's
Yeah,
like,
for sure.
but that's not the spirit of the game. Well, yeah, look at the NFL and Major League Baseball. They're talking to players mic'd up that are on the field while they're playing professional football, or excuse me,
Yeah.
professional baseball. Archery needs to shut the hole under their nose and allow archery to get fun. They probably won't. But the point is, if they were calling out those scores, it would build pressure. If people reacted to each of your shots, there's time for people to react and then get quiet. That would help. In between ends, having somebody out there talking to you guys in between ends, kind of building things up. And this is no, and I told Mathias the same thing. This is no offense to you or Mathias. If all of those regular sports things are happening, I don't think you guys go 23 ends.
Maybe not.
Because you're not getting into oh, I'm just shooting groove now. You're
Yeah.
getting extra bumps of adrenaline from the crowd.
Mhm.
You're getting extra bumps of adrenaline from hearing his score called out. There's just a lot of things that you can do to build excitement. And it's not just to make you guys miss, but like you just said, it's to actually make that more exciting to watch because
Yeah.
that's the point. And so, hopefully that can start happening again. I used to love doing that. That was one of my favorite things was just to go out there and riff with folks. But
Mhm.
but when you guys are up there shooting, does the quietness that you experienced in the Rushmore Rumble shoot off Does that also facilitate you just getting into that flow and that movement of literally just shooting in the garage?
No, I don't think so.
No.
I personally, I think unless somebody was directly talking to me, like as I'm trying to shoot, like in my face,
Oh,
I mean, honestly, I can even block that out.
all right.
But um,
That would
I
be a
think
bit.
people could be as I think people can be as loud as they want. I mean, I definitely agree with the whole 10 thing because one thing I don't necessarily love, I 100% understand it, and I would never say anything to anybody because I don't really care. But when you have one archer that has somebody behind the line, every time they shoot a 10, they go, "Yep." And
Right.
then,
Right.
I mean, somebody put a comment on that my dad was like yelling, "Yep," every single time I shot. I could see my dad. He definitely wasn't doing that. Um, George would say, George Riles, who was sitting by my dad in front of him, would say, "Yep," sometimes.
Right.
Um, but I mean, like a couple years ago when I was shooting with against Chris Schaff, Brady would go, "Yep," every other time or after every shot, and
Right.
like Stefan, the whole time after he got out, every time that Mathias shot one in the middle, he'd go, "Yep." I'm like, "Yep, uh-huh." But for me, the only reason I knew that he might have missed is because I didn't hear a yep. That's the only difference in that shot.
Right.
I heard somebody gasp in the audience and I didn't hear a yep. That was the only reason I thought that he maybe missed one.
That's exactly what I'm saying.
If
So,
somebody was calling a nine, I would love it. I would hate it, but I would also love it because,
right.
like, say I missed one.
Right.
If somebody hears nine, this is their chance to win.
Exactly.
That's going to get in somebody else's head. I could get in mine too. I'm not saying it won't. It definitely has and can.
Right.
Um, but I think that that definitely needs to be done. Somebody needs to be announcing scores. It would suck to do for 23 ends, but it also might make it not go 23 ends.
I don't think it would. I think talk and yeah, obviously not talking to you while you're at full draw, Joe Rogan, Conor McGregor, broken leg style. How you feeling, bud?
Yeah.
While you're at full draw
Yeah.
is not that's not the ticket. But talking to you guys when you're down there waiting for scores, talking to you when you come back and you're waiting to prep. I mean, talking to Mathias about are you having flashbacks of Vegas now that we're at end 18 or, you know,
Yeah.
Bodie, the guy you're shooting against just did this in Vegas and won. What's the mental focus at this point, knowing that you're going against someone that's done it before? It's
Yeah.
not
For
rocket
sure.
science, but archery just doesn't seem to. So anyway, let's get into your equipment here. Obviously, as we've said, you're shooting the
Concept.
Concept X.
Yep.
Yeah. Anyway, the Concept X. You shooting the 37.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. And so obviously with the new cam system that Hoyt came out with this year, it has the normal mods and then it has the spec mods. And the spec mods were a la Spiral Cam family. They have the adjustable feet on there where they have the tweener feet the normal feet go 65, 70, 75% let off. The tweener feet are obviously 67 and a half, 72 and a half, et cetera, et cetera. So talk to us a little bit about how you have that Concept X rigged up.
Well, I finally just got my mods last night, so I haven't shot the
You
spec
were,
mods. I'm just running stock everything.
you were shooting,
And I
you were
don't
raw
really
dogging
think
that thing.
I don't think I'm even gonna put the mods on because I have it how I want it right now. So they might just sit for a little bit. I might try them, but I don't really want to risk changing something when I know it works.
Okay.
Um, I
I
might
will
throw the tweener feet on
I will
because I
assume
wouldn't mind 6, 7 and a half. But
I will assume for the sake of argument you only have one bow.
yeah, yeah, I only have one of them.
All right. Anyway, so How do you have the feet positioned now? So on this new cam system, folks, if you leave the feet the way it comes from the factory, it has a really hard wall. If you move the top foot to the bottom, bottom foot to the top, it has a little bit softer wall. What's your preference?
I have it on the solid back wall. I don't really want a ton of sponge because I don't really pull super hard. I don't wouldn't say I have a very consistent. I'm just static.
Right.
So I'd like to have something to be static against.
Okay.
Not a huge fan of sponge on it. I've did try it the other way. I didn't. There was definitely a difference, but not really enough to matter. I
Okay.
was told that the tweener feet and spec mod might even be a little more solid back wall because I didn't love the back wall, but I think my strings had stretched a little bit.
Okay.
I was still running factory strings.
Okay.
Um, so I think I fixed my timing and that I got the back wall back that I liked.
Okay. How many pounds you shooting right now?
I mean, it's maxed out on a 60-pound bow, so probably right around 60.
You've never measured it, have you?
No,
Have you measured your let off?
no,
All
it
right.
shoots in the middle. I don't really care what it does.
My God, people. How much holding weight do you generally like? How much does your okay? Hold on.
It's
Holding weight.
probably between 17 and 18.
How much holding weight does your Invicta have?
Which one?
The one you
And
won.
at what time?
Oh my God.
They've all won something. I got three of them. They've all won a tournament.
Hold on here. I'm going to text Joel Turner. What is your son's malfunction? No, I'm just kidding. Um, all right. So you're not that picky on it, but you would say that.
I like to be between like 17 and 18.
Okay. All right.
Anywhere around those two, I can shoot it comfortably.
All right. And are you running your cams dead even, top ahead, bottom ahead? What's your deal?
I I like top behind just a hair, but that doesn't always shoot that well for me. I like to have that little bit where it can help me get rid of that bob that I hate sometimes, where I have that little tiny bit of room on top.
Right.
But sometimes that causes even the tiniest amount can cause tuning issues or shooting issues or so I'm typically dead even or pretty close to it.
Okay. All right. Let's talk about arrows. So when you won
Yep.
Vegas, I think you were shooting a carbon with like a buck
Super
30.
super drive with 130 up front.
Yeah,
Yeah.
super drive with 130. What's your arrow of choice for the Rushmore Rumble?
I was running a 2712 with 200 up front.
Okay. How long?
Uh, Probably like 27 short.
What you talking about, Willis?
It's short.
You're running it was that short?
Yeah,
Okay.
it's not long.
What's your draw length?
27 and a half.
Damn. Okay. So you're running. All right. Well, I mean, obviously it's working. What veins you running on it?
I'm running four hybrid 26s right now.
How much helical?
Uh, Probably 2 to 3 degrees.
Oh, so a good bit. So you're
Yeah,
putting man,
I don't run straight veins. You'll never catch me running straight veins.
me neither, but here of late I've just been running into a lot of people that are like, "Oh, I put like 1 degree on there." And I'm like, "Bro, it's indoors. You need to you need to wrap that bad boy."
I haven't adjusted my jig since last indoor season. I've ran the same. I don't know how I'm getting all these arrows to work off it. I don't know if I found the magical spot or whatever, but I've ran
Right.
the only thing that's changed on it is three fletch to four fletch.
And
I ran
why four? Just because you felt you needed it or what?
I've never had good luck with a hybrid 26 and only three of them on an indoor arrow. I've had luck with four,
Well, on a
but
27
never.
especially. I mean,
Yeah,
three of them on a 23 would probably work, but
it's
yeah,
plenty. Yeah,
I've never had good luck with three of the 26s on a 27 either.
I've tried it every single year. I've never had it once work.
Okay. Slow learner or what's the deal?
Just curious. You know, you gotta. It's a different setup every year.
This is yeah, well,
So
it comes to a 27, three 26s just ain't enough juice back there. And so
no,
so you got a bunch of twist on there. how are you? Do you have that 90s or do you have the four fletch 75 105?
90s. Yeah.
So the next logical question would be
Clearance
correct.
doesn't exist.
Yeah, I don't care either. I'm not.
No, yeah, my you can see my vein hits the middle of my blade. Does it shoot well? Apparently. I
Uh,
mean, I
I mean,
don't really have too much of a problem with it.
that's going to be a soundbite. I can already tell. I mean, look, I'm not saying you have to have 100% clearance, but I'm certainly not saying just raw dog that bitch right down the pipe and put a bacon strip down the middle of your launcher blade. But I'm
I mean,
also
it's probably right third if we're being honest. It's like right half to right third,
okay.
but I mean, it's definitely not on the edge. Part of the vein is hitting pretty stout on that blade.
And have you at least indexed them all so they're all hitting the same way? I'm gonna kill you.
I know you are.
I'm gonna text your dad, tell him he needs but they better have
I've knocked tuned them all, if
Oh,
that
okay.
helps.
Yes, that does help.
I
Okay.
not I fletch them all with the same spot on the label up, and then I shoot them and I'll knock tune them once I'm done.
Do you have any idea how many people are gonna need therapy after listening to this? It's
I don't know. They might
yeah,
shoot better, so it might help them a little bit. But
bro. I mean, I can't hate on it. And so what size launcher blade are you running?
I always run a 10th standard on the AEs for indoor stuff.
About how much angle do you put on that dangle? Is it pretty flat or do you have it standing up or what's your deal?
I keep mine definitely on the standing up side of things. I can't say I know an exact measurement on it at all.
Okay.
Um, I've never like I've seen people that run their blades like barely off flat. I've tried it, and anytime I go below a certain spot, I start to bounce my arrow off the blade like crazy.
Right.
I've tried to shoot it low. And I've always ended up on the higher side of things. I've always found it to shoot better for me. I never really have a problem with it bouncing off my blade very much, and if I do, I just put it back on there with my mouth.
Well, with a
So
27-inch arrow, you certainly aren't going to use your finger.
new, no,
Yeah.
it's pretty short.
All right. And so as far as indoor tuning, do I even need to ask? You just shoot until it all hits this all shoots one hole type thing?
Yeah, pretty much.
All right. Yeah, which
I'll take like 5 dozen arrows when I'm testing stuff. I mean, people gonna test. I'll bring like a couple dozen arrows with a bunch of different setups and just shoot them all and see what works. And then I find the system that I like the best, and then I'll fine tune that one system.
okay.
That's what I do a lot of the time.
Well, and I mean, I mean, look, man, you're such a good shot that you get to streamline the process
Yeah,
because
for sure.
you're good enough that there's no questions. Like
Mhm.
if you shoot and it doesn't go where you think it should, you know that's a problem.
Yeah.
So that's kind of handy. I got to have a machine for that, but whatever. And so, what sight and scope are you running right now?
I'm running I think it's the Achieve Pro,
Okay, new one.
their new one, and then the AVX scope.
Okay,
I've been really liking that scope for a while.
what power lens do you run?
You're gonna love my answer. I'm not sure. I had a couple lenses. It's a 5 or a 6, but it's sucked way in, so it doesn't really matter. It could be a 6, but it's gonna look like a 3 or a 4.
For those of you wondering what he just said, he has his scope relatively close to the bow. So the closer the
Yep.
lens is to your eye, the less power it'll have. The farther away it is, the more power it'll have. But he doesn't necessarily know what he's starting with, so it just
It should be a 5 or a 6, maybe. Emphasize on the maybe.
that's a good
It's a 4, 5, or a 6 because that's all that I have.
now it's a four, a five, or a six. Okay. Well, I mean,
It's
hey,
most it's yeah, I can confidently say it's between a 4 and a 6
at
because
least
that's
you
those are the only ones that I own.
at least you are consistently inconsistent. So that's cool.
Exactly. I can't know exactly what I'm doing. I just shoot stuff.
Oh, I mean, it's working. So what kind of
Yeah.
dot do you use?
Oh, you're gonna love this even more. Well, you might like this one. So I build my own dots, or me and my dad build dots for him. Leather punch and gorilla tape is how I make my indoor dots.
Uh, I I think I'm having an aneurysm.
Well,
You
you invited me. I don't know what to tell you.
you punch out a dot out of leather.
Out of gorilla tape
Oh,
with
you
with a leather punch.
oh. So you take gorilla tape and you yeah, it's not that bad. That's
No, that is by far my favorite way I've ever. The Gunstar dots and stuff. I hate those things. They
well,
drive me insane.
the coatings on the lenses are not super good with those manufacturers.
Yeah.
You have to address that. And I
Hmm.
think way back in the day when those were the big thing, I don't think that the coatings were what they have become. So, no,
Yeah,
okay.
for
So
sure.
you take Gorilla Tape and you
Yes.
punch out a 50, 60, 70, 100,000 dot, and then you
Hmm.
put that in your scope.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not
It's
terrible.
probably
It's
it's
not
probably around that 50 to 60. It's at full draw, it covers a little bit less than the 10 ring.
okay. Yeah,
I
that's
don't know what power it is, but yeah,
we've established that
good. Yeah.
is that is established. And so,
Don't even need to announce it.
right. And so, do you run a tiny peep?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, you're
Yeah.
17. You got to have good eyes, right?
Yeah, my eyes are pretty good.
Is it getting dark up there in the Pacific Northwest? Is there a light in that room, or
Slowly but surely, I can turn on a light if you want me to.
are is your solar dying? What's the deal up there?
It's cloudy, believe it or not.
Yeah, in northern Washington.
Believe it or not, it's cloudy. It's not raining though. I'm pretty happy about it.
Exactly. So during the during the shoot off, Paige was trying to determine what release you were shooting. Her not being super familiar with stands, I think she said it was a stand, but what release were you shooting last weekend?
I was shooting a shoot off,
Okay, from stand.
stand shoot off. Yes.
Okay. I would assume that you have played with a prototype of that new stand wrist rocket index finger that has the click.
Yes.
What do you
I
think of that?
was I was competing with it for a little bit. I brought it to a tournament and
Really?
it pounds. Yeah.
That would
Yeah.
that would certainly be a problem if you showed up in Vegas with something like that. I'm sure Stan would like it, but that would wreck some people's lives.
I would have no problem. I would 100% compete with that release.
No kidding.
I was shooting some of the best rounds I've shot this year have been with that release.
Wow.
But I had my bow like built for it. I was loving it.
Wow.
And I changed some stuff and ended up shooting a clicker at the tournament that I was gonna run that one at. So I ended up just not I unset up my bow for it and ended up not shooting with it.
Okay. Well, I mean that's what it is. And so
Yeah. But I had it
hey man,
shooting extremely well.
yeah. Well, hey, dude, I appreciate you spending some time with me. I see it's getting kind of dark up there and you probably got some better shit to do. But dude, that shoot off was redonkulous. Um,
It was fun.
yeah, dude. I mean, the you and Matthias were just absolutely that was super impressive. So great job with that. Are you going to be changing anything? Are you going to Neems or anywhere else?
No,
Lancaster's is
just
next.
Lancaster and
So,
the Chicago shoot
oh,
in
you're going
Vegas.
to indoor nationals, are you?
Yeah, I'm not overly excited
Oh,
about it, but I'm doing it.
oh. All right. So are you going to be changing anything before Lancaster's or Chicago?
I don't know, maybe,
Maybe if you find those 500 diameter ones.
probably. I
Maybe.
mean, I'll probably leave my bars for a little bit, but if I find them, they might be on other bows. Who knows?
Oh my God. You are classic, kid. You are absolutely classic. But let everybody know where they can keep up with Bodie Turner out there on the World Wide Webs.
Yeah, I'm just on Instagram, so Bodie underscore Turner, and I'm getting better about posting on there. It's nice when I can now do the collaborating posts and people can do posts for me.
There you
But that definitely helps out. But yeah, that's my main place that I am.
there you go. All right, everybody. That's Bodie Turner right there. He put on a show at the Rushmore Rumble this last weekend. I mean, obviously things are clicking. I am going to be curious to see what happens with Bodie when he gets the opportunity. You know, obviously only having one of uh those Hoyts, Steve Anderson, Steve, Steve, um, I'm going to be curious because I have the spec mods on mine and I like it. So be curious to see what happens when Bodie gets a chance to play with those spec mods on that new cam system and, obviously plays with the tweener feet and stuff because I think it kind of goes without saying that the unit of measure for Bodie is his Invicta. And so everything that he shoots, he's comparing it to the Invicta. And so he won everything there is that he shot pretty much with that thing. So I appreciate him coming on. I mean, I'm telling you right now, when Bodie finishes school and he makes his decision for a bow contract and he starts shooting tournaments full time. I mean, I know you see him shooting a bunch of stuff. He shoots a bunch of stuff up in Washington and et cetera, et cetera. But school has taken priority. I am going to be very excited to see what happens with Bodie when he gets out there to shoot a full schedule. I did ask Bodie earlier in the week. Obviously, he'll have not this year, but he'll have to shoot one of the Euro tournaments, probably Kings of Archery or whatever, Lancasters, all the NFAAs. And then he told me that his other tour is going to be the ASA. And so he will figure that game out. I have no doubt that he will adapt and learn that game relatively quickly. But it's going to be fun to see how his career progresses. Once he gets out of school and starts doing archery full time as a pro. So anyway, that's going to be it for the podcast. Everybody today, I appreciate you guys listening. As always, I thank you guys for your support. More of you listen to this podcast than I ever. It's kind of wild, to be honest. And so started recording them, putting them on the YouTubies. So not doing too bad over there. Appreciate you guys. We're gonna keep doing the thing and be safe out there, everybody. Obviously, don't fall out of any tree stands. Wear your safety harness and all that stuff. If you're driving in this shitty weather, be safe out there, folks. We want to hear from you, not about you. And as always, love, peace, and chicken grease.